Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar here on SAP Automated Revenue Accounting, formerly known as RAR. We talked a lot about that, and maybe Pete, as we get through this, you and the team can talk a little bit about the change in the name too. But we're going to focus today on OCM versus CCM, optimized contract management and classic contract management as the foundation for the new solution economy approach that we will all be taking, helping companies move from the old model of doing business where you buy something and you pay for it to a new model where customers are looking for more flexible options on pay over time, pay for items long-term, and a bunch of flexible more. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Hopefully, Pete, we can all see my screen this time, right? So this webinar is being recorded.
Yep, I can see it, John. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. So I've got multiple monitors, want to make sure it's working right today. So the webinar is being recorded, and I encourage all of you, go check it out online if you miss anything here, or share with your colleagues. You're free to ask questions throughout the webinar. Check out the questions panel. Go ahead and ask those questions. We'll answer as many as we can. We have a few questions that folks asked and we set up as part of the registration. So when you do register, reminder, feel free to drop some questions or key items in there and we'll respond to those. And of course, you can download our previous webinars from our homepage. There's lots of fantastic information that SAP also has out there. There's a new solution brief on automated revenue management that Pete's working on, as well as a really great FAQ that gives you a lot more detailed answers. So I encourage you to check that out as well. You can contact us, reach out to Bramasol, of course, at bramasol.com, but we're also available through LinkedIn, Facebook, and check out our YouTube page. I think there's well over 100 different videos. And interestingly enough, I think we have about 60 some odd videos available on revenue accounting. And some of our most popular ones out there have to do with some of the problems that we've addressed in these webinars. You can also check us out on Apple iTunes or through iHeartRadio. So today, oops, I don't know why I wonder why our fireplace didn't come up. So today we're going to focus today on a fireside chat. This is a little bit of a different format. We've done them before. But today is really meant to be less of a formal presentation and an opportunity to talk through. Somebody needs to go on mute out there if they can. And we're going to have a fireside chat. So we've got some very distinguished panelists on here from SAP, Bramasol, and we will kind of format this and ask some, it's sort of an ask the questions, ask the experts format. So we'll go ahead and do that. And how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing we're going to talk about and we've gone through is the introductions. So I've introduced and I'll introduce the panelists in a moment. We'll do a topic overview. So I'll do a quick touch on why we're doing this, dive into some key areas and you'll see the key topic areas. Then we, as I mentioned, we also have some questions from registrants, also questions from customers that have come up as we've done projects, and hopefully Roshni from the services team, COE in SAP, will be able to jump on and join us as well, because she and our team are working on a lot of projects together. So for those of you who don't know what this is the first of many fireside chats that Franklin Delano Roosevelt held way back during the Depression and World War II, really to help people understand and feel comfortable about what was going on in the world and really have an opportunity to communicate with them and with American citizens and the world. Today, we have the honor of having some very distinguished panelists on our team from the SAP development team, the folks who develop and build this product. We have Volkmar Zahn. Welcome, Volkmar. Gerald Wellenhofer and Xin Fang, both from the development team, the folks who developed the product, and they'll be talking a little bit more about more product specifics. Pete, as always, it's fantastic to have you. You've been on probably a dozen or more webinars and different programs that we've been on, so welcome to you. Our services COE, Roshni Frisch, who is part of the services COE, they're the folks who get involved with customers on a regular basis, large customers, Apple, Google, Siemens, Vodafone, you pick them, many of the large SAP customers. They get involved in helping make sure that the projects go smoothly, adding expertise and have some fantastic insights. I'll be your moderator as always. And then on from Bramasol, I have, Shashank, I did it again. I put Shankar down. I meant Shashank Siripuram. Shashank is currently has worked on a number of different projects. He's currently working on a project with one of our customers and has some background from several of our other folks, and we'll talk about some of our specific experience. So with that, we're going to dive into topic one. So we're going to do this kind of in a very open format. In topic one, I want to ask about what is optimized contract management. And I'm going to pose that question to the SAP team. Let's start, Shin, if you can. So what is this thing we're calling optimized contract management, and why do people care?
Yeah, maybe I can answer these questions in a nutshell.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Chin. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, in one sentence, I would call the optimized contract management a renovated solution based on S4 capability and to fit to more close to the subscription scenarios. And maybe here I can talk about the motivation to have this optimized contract management. If we look back several years, at that moment, the revenue accounting, so-called classic contract management, is still an add-on of the ECC. But at that moment, we actually faced several challenges with that solution. First of all, there is a demanding request from customer to have better support for those subscription scenarios. And nowadays, you see those requirements in every industries, such as day-based contract modification, early terminations, and suspend scenarios. Secondly, they would have to leverage the HANA capability to have HANA-based reporting and without heavy customer development. And thirdly, they would like to have some nice UIs with Fiori apps. And last but not least, they would like to have more real-time processing instead of lots of batch of background job. And all those, let's say, challenges can only be managed using the S4 capability. So at that moment, we decided to renovate the solution so that we can tackle all those challenges from our customer. So then we have this optimized contract management. This is a native S4 HANA solution. And this means that you don't need to have an add-on, and you can directly have it in the S4 HANA solution and also tackle all the challenges I have mentioned. Nowadays, in optimized contract management, you will see a better support for your subscription scenarios. And also you will leverage the nice UI from Fiori apps. And overall speaking, if you are a S4 customer, this gives you a harmonized feeling across your different components or different operations, not only in RAR, but also in other applications. And then we provide HANA-based reports. This is standard reports for disclosure, for analysis, and also for management reporting purpose. Last but not least, now with the optimized contract management, you would have the chance to have your real-time integration with your standard component with your operation document, so that this would reduce your effort to own this solution, or also reduce your complexity of your system.
Yeah, Shin, Fantastic, and I love, and the features, of course, we talk about, and the ones that seem to be very interesting to our clients
Mhm,
are the day-based calculations, the early terminations, and the
mhm,
suspends, right? Because that's a very strong option and very much what we see in the subscription economy. But
mhm,
OCM is really kind of, as I looked at the FAQs and preparing for this, there's actually, I guess, two pieces to this, right? It's the
mhm,
contract management piece of it, and
mhm.
then it's the optimized inbound processing. Maybe you can
Yeah.
talk for folks, what is that optimized inbound processing, and why does that piece
Mhm,
matter? We can talk about the features, which are
yeah.
great, but why is the
Mhm.
inbound processing so
Yeah.
important?
Yeah, that's also a very good point because in the past we have so-called classic inbound processing, and this classic inbound processing is more like a data transmission layer. And unfortunately, in the past, due to technical limitations, we do not support a real-time integration. So assume that you have two working group. One working group is on the sales order or sales management side. The other working group is on the revenue accounting contract side, like those
Mhm.
center of shared service center for revenue accounting. They would have some communication problems due to this non-real-time integration. For example, on day one, on the morning, the salespeople create sales order, but at the same time, the revenue accounting contracts is not yet there in the system, and only in the afternoon you would see it, or even in due to some reasons, you will see it the next day. This brings quite a lot of communication effort between your organization. Um, the optimized inbound processing now get rid of all those batch jobs. It is real-time integration. And actually, we already got feedbacks from customers that they love it because whenever you have the sales order there, and if it is already integrated with revenue accounting, the revenue accounting contracts will immediately be in the system, and also those revenue accountants would at the first point notice those things in the system. And also this would help to reduce some issues. For example, if the revenue accountant can have at a very early stage to notify if there's some risk in the sales contract.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anybody want to add any thoughts to that? Pete, Volkmar, anyone? Okay. So let's
Sorry,
move to
John.
topic. Go
I
ahead,
was
Pete.
just saying. I think it's just one comment is just the whole optimized piece, right? We're getting more and more requests from customers for real time nature, right? So on the ERP side, we had customers running. I mean, I think a lot of customers were running it monthly, but we also had a lot of doing it weekly and daily. And because of that, they were like, guys, can you run it even faster? And so all that feedback went in to optimize contract management and optimize inbound processing. And really, it's near real time, right? So I think Chin and Volkmar, you can do it by transaction if you have to, right? On that
Yeah.
optimize inbound processing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
So Pete, since we have you here, let's move to topic number 2, which is all about, Pete, Shin kind of set it up a little bit in terms of um, what was the inspiration for and drive to do this, but you talk to probably more customers than I can imagine about RAR and revenue accounting, automated revenue management now.
Yep, almost
Why
every
are
day I'm on the phone with customers.
Pretty
Yep.
much every day, yes. So why are customers choosing the optimized contract management um, direction rather than the classic contract management? Why are they choosing it?
Well, I mean, I think Chin hinted at this, and I think Volkmar and Gil will comment too. But this is kind of a natural evolution
Mhm,
of the product and also the market, right? So I mean, you have, we talked about the digital economy and how you know um, the volumes and the complexities are increasing, And, we're always looking to, improve the product. I mean, the team has done a very good job consistently improving RAR, but there came a point where in order to take advantage of all the HANA capabilities, they had to do some renovations, or you would call it redesign, or I think, Shin, I think you said, um, you renovated the product, right? But there's some major improvements that are now in the latest RAR, essentially revenue accounting on-premise 2020 in the optimized contract management module that solves a lot of problems and takes advantages of the new technology in ways we couldn't before do, right? So let's talk about some high volume capabilities, or and really ultra high volume, or we just talked about the inbound processing, or day-based calculations, I think Chin mentioned. I mean, many of these things we couldn't really do on the old architecture, right? And so when the team, had a pretty big task, they had to say, okay, how can we make sure, all the existing ERP customers can move to the new OCM version, but still get lots of new functionality when they get to OCM, and that's what they've done, right? So you can still run the classic version right on S/4HANA, and so you have, protection in your investment. But if you want to take advantage of these new capabilities, you opt in to optimize contract management, and now you get the Fiori UI, you get the embedded analytics, you get day-based calculations, you get access to the optimized inbound processing, and the optimized posting is coming later this year, right, for the real
Right.
near-time capability. So those are the reasons why customers are selecting, right? So the future of the RAR product is clear, right? It's all on HANA. It's all optimized contract management. I mean, that's where all the latest and greatest features are, and that we're continuing to invest there, and there continue to be improvements. And it's just naturally customers will start taking advantage of those, and they'll have to in order to keep up with the digital economy, right? That's just kind of a natural, evolution. So.
Yeah, and I think Pete, I think that's a great point, and it's certainly an opportunity. We met with a company yesterday that's in the healthcare industry, and they're evolving their model to this digital economy and understanding the subscription or solutions. Think of hospitals or devices that communicate and gather information and can transmit that information, and allowing hospitals to subscribe. It's a very different model. And when we talked with them about what optimized contract management provides, it was sort of a no-brainer for them in terms of,
I mean,
wow, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, just on the volume, I mean, the add-on, the ERP add-on, RAR, you could run on an S/4HANA and it runs well there, but it didn't take full advantage of the S/4HANA capabilities. But that, with the renovation that the team's done for the optimized contract management in OP 2020, it now takes, I don't want to say full advantage, but almost full advantage, right? Because there's always more you can do, but it's now, it takes, finally leverages S/4HANA in many more ways for the benefits of the, the revenue accounting customers.
Absolutely. I saw that. Roshni, are you there? Can you hear all right?
I am. Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, you're out there with SAP evangelizing optimized contract management, but you're also in the trenches dealing with customers on a regular basis. What are you hearing about optimized contract management, and what do customers like, and why are they choosing OCM over Classic? And we will have a question later about the opposite, but let's focus on why optimized contract management.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the things that customers are the most excited about in optimized contract management, aside from some of the facts that it's just faster, is the day-based contract modifications. That's the thing that has, I think, the most customers excited, is that previously in classic contract management, your modifications essentially were effective for the period in which you logged them. And now you can have more dynamic modifications coming in on almost a daily basis if you want, and it doesn't override any of the accounting. You can track that modification of your contract on a day-by-day basis in terms of what types of things have changed, what types of additional POBs are coming in. So I think that's the thing that from an accounting side, people are most excited to see.
Great. Shashank, you're working with on our project with one of the world's largest companies. And we've of course been talking with we've been talking with our colleagues from our COE team about this. Why are you seeing customers adopting optimized contract management? What are the features that they really get into from your perspective?
Yeah, so so this optimized contract management has, makes use of dedicated SAP S4 HANA capabilities such as Fiori, so which was not available in contract classic contract management. So in which the customers are able to access many Fiori apps. That is going to be the future SAP user access apps. And it also focuses on performance optimization in terms of optimizing the revenue postings or day-based contract modifications or making the real-time revenue accounting contracts in nature. So these are all the benefits that the customers choose, and especially on telecommunication industry where they use FICA or BRIM, the transaction flow is very high compared to the other central components. So in which the optimized version of RAR makes very much sense for them to streamline their performance and get the desired results.
That's a great point, and I'm going to circle back to that and maybe throw that out to Pete or Volkmar or somebody from the SAP product team. He mentioned BRIM and the integration with BRIM, and of course BRIM being the billing, revenue, and innovation management solution from SAP that's really, and we'll be talking about it in future, and have, by the way, talked about it in other webinars, but really is a core part of the enablement for this digital economy, solutions economy. And Pete and team, maybe you guys can talk a little bit about the focus and the attention that was put to that and why you think that's important.
Yeah, I mean the BRIM, and I'll let Chin or Volkmar or Girl, I mean, you guys have all been involved in this. I mean, but the BRIM synergies have been there from very early on, right? We basically in the first, ramp up sessions of the RAR product back in 2015, we had customers already asking about that, and the BRIM integration was introduced, I think it was back in the 1.1. So very shortly after we launched the product, we were already working on the BRIM integration and had customers using it. So that story actually goes back to basically the beginning, and Susie Cruzo on our side was one of the product evangelists and leaders on that and helped work with customers early on. And it's just been growing ever since. And we were constantly working with our BRIM colleagues and customers, and we see a lot of synergies between customers rolling out BRIM and rolling out RAR. And I think, the product team, Gerald, Chin, and Volkmar have probably seen this, and happy to let them chime in here too. But that's what I'm seeing, when I work with the customers and our BRIM colleagues.
Yeah, I think the integration with BRIM and the optimized contract management, the story still continues, and we do see that customers with the subscription business select BRIM, and as naturally the support with the revenue accounting is also very crucial to those customers. So with the optimized contract management, we still support the integration with BRIM, and we work very closely between these two teams within the development team.
Yeah, I think the ones that again, going back to the features, right? The new features in optimized contract management, the day-based calculations, certainly from integration with a subscription SOM, right? Subscription order management, creating the orders and being able to set them up like customers want on a specific date, not on, oh, you can run it the 15th or the end of the month. It's true day-based calculations. We know that customers want flexibility in how they manage their plans, and they may want to cancel, change. Again, one of the powerful features for this, and it is part of OCM, but it's core to RAR, is the ability to do contract combinations and changes, right? I mean, that's even more powerful space. So, and then the invoicing and convergent billing, et cetera. And also, as I think of more models moving away from even subscriptions, we think of subscriptions as I pay a monthly fee and get a thing, whatever the outcome is, right? Whether it's a subscription to a music channel, a TV channel, people who subscribe to Porsche, and you can pay $1,000 a month, and every 3 months change the Porsche that you want, oddly enough. But more and more are getting into these ratings or usage-based that are more telco familiar. And again, that idea of being able to do day-based calculations, and then even more importantly, the volume of data, I think will be crucial. So we've talked a lot about optimized contract management, and clearly that is a fantastic choice for most companies. But some companies are still choosing the classic contract management. And I think there are some reasons why. I'm going to kind of, I'll throw it out there. I'm going to put Roshni on the spot to start with, and then we can go to Pete and Shashank to talk about that. But Roshni, as you're out there, awesome features, still a lot of great work here in classic, in optimized contract management, but some customers still opt for classic contract management. Why do they do that?
Right. And for the most part, we're trying to steer as many customers as we can to optimize contract management. But that version is not available in the ECC environment. So in cases where customers need to migrate and they have to migrate quickly on their current ECC base, there is the case to be made that there's really no alternative there. So in those cases, customers are going for classic.
Pete, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think maybe we can give customers a little bit more background about the ramifications of that choice, right, Roshni? So I think so the future is, the optimized contract management, right? That's where we have the latest and greatest capabilities. That doesn't mean we're not, still investing in the ERP side. We are. It's still active. We've got a great team there. They're doing some minor updates, but it's not getting a lot of major updates, right? And we can't backport this functionality, right? So it's, you need to make a choice. As Roshni said, there are some situations where, just due to other pressing business issues, it could be, look, they just, we had a customer that was running ERP and they were running an older version, and they had to upgrade them, do a minor upgrade from a very old version to a newer version just to stay in compliance. And so we've seen some of that. But there is a trade-off in that if you don't go to optimize contract management now, you will have to go to it later. And so, Roshni, maybe you make some comments, because I think we've talked to this on other calls. I think on the user group call that there is kind of a pay me now or pay me later choice, right? You can go down the classic route on S/4HANA, you're fine, but later you're going to have to move, or when you move, you will have to spend potentially some more effort, because there are some things that change, and you'll have to then take those changes into consideration when you finally do move from the classic running on S/4 to the optimized contract management running on S/4.
Right. And I think it's a very customer specific decision that has to be made based on the pressing needs and the reason why you need to move and what you're looking for in your RevRec implementation project. But the reality is that all of the future developments are going to be coming out on optimized contract management. And so there would be a potential either, lazy migration or a big bang migration to get onto that next step. For those that are on classic. So there's a give and take and pros and cons for each customer based on that. But that is why we think it makes the most sense and when possible to go with optimized.
No, absolutely, and I don't want to make no mistake. Obviously, optimized contract management is the future, the way to go. and there are some, there are some challenges or reasons why a customer might not. Shashank, we've been talking with our COE, and they had a couple of reasons. Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so with respect to what have been added, like I would like to add a few more comments. Like, so when it comes to optimized contract management, there are some existing functionalities of classic version have not been made available yet. So like some fields like RAI monitor, like if the user or business has requirement to exempt, restore, or modify some raw items. So these type of functionalities are not made available because it is been real time. So you don't have an option to choose the RAI monitor at all in the optimized version. And also, certain functionalities like reprocessing the contract and if you're using 1909 version, so some functionalities like contract acquisition cost, so these type of functionalities were not made available. So it depends on what specifically client is looking to implement. Maybe they can choose for classic, and again you can implement optimized in parallel with classic contract management.
Don't you stealing one of my questions later?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So maybe Volkmar or Chin, you could talk about the roadmap, because some of those issues are getting closed out in 2020. Then John, on the mixed mode, maybe you could also comment about the mixed mode between classic and optimized.
Yes, that was a question, and we're gonna get to that in a couple of minutes. We'll let folks comment on that one. Volkmar, maybe, or Shin, you guys, or even Gerald, you guys can talk a little bit about some of these features. We know from the FAQs there are a few features, but I know you guys, you're busily working on them. What can we expect to see in upcoming versions of OCM?
Yeah, maybe I can talk about that. So what is our roadmap? So first of all, we would like to close the current gaps we have with the classic contract management, because we work hardly on those to fulfill those requirements on the subscription scenarios. And however, there are still some other requirements, such as menu spreading, to edit the spreading manually. And on top of that, we also would like to provide some flexibility, like provide more customer enhancement, the ability to have, for example, customer validations, the customer logic at allocations and SSP calculations. And also, as already mentioned by Pete, we would also like to have more automated processes, and with such as the so-called direct posting or optimized posting, that you do not need to have another batch job to post to the FI to generate FI documents, and you can generate FI documents in a real-time, in an almost real-time manner with your small volume business scenarios. That's what we have on our roadmap.
Okay. What about project systems integration, Shin? I think I saw that in the FAQ. How does that sit? Because we are running into particularly more customers who are using project systems for part of their business, particularly for their services business, are thinking of migrating. And of course, we know that SD RevRec goes away in S/4HANA. They're moving from ECC. What's the vision for percent of complete?
Yeah, this is also one of those items in our roadmap. The plan is a little bit slightly different with the classic one. In classic contract management, we have this project integration with the project system and with the famous result analysis. And in S4, we have another solution, so-called event-based revenue recognition, that you would also be able to do project-based revenue recognition. And our roadmap is to integrate revenue accounting and together with this event-based revenue recognition, so that you can integrate these two solutions together.
Well, fantastic. Oh, that'll be exciting. I've seen both of. I've seen the EBRR, and that's a great tool. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Maybe
right.
a few points to add.
Please,
So we're already down to, let's say, feature comparison, right? And it's a fair point. Yeah, as a customer, you would like to understand, are these features you're using maybe in the revenue accounting add-on release, or you plan to use if they're available. And obviously we can't go into all these details here in this call, but what I would like to point out is that there are release information notes available for the 1909 release as well as for the OP 2020 release. And it's also correct, yeah, so Shashank pointed it out. In 1909, there was still quite a big catch-up to be done, right? So 1909 was certainly more targeting the telco industry, the high volume industry, and had certainly some more gaps on the optimized contract management. We did a huge catch up with the 2020 release, so I think it's fair to say that most of what you have been able to use, the classic capabilities is available. As Shin pointed out, there's still a few leftovers, which we are strongly working on. We also took the chance to improve a lot of things. Yeah, if you look at the migration, for instance, we came up with a new concept. The bill of material scenarios are different and optimized really from all the learnings we had, and we really took the chance, took the opportunity to improve on that, obviously to the benefit, we believe, to customers and partners implementing that. So the point I wanted to make is we are not able to go down to all the levels, but it's a fair question. And if you want to have all the details, then please have a look specifically to the release information note, which are out, which will be out with the OP 2021 release coming later this year, planned to come later this year. And yeah, we are on a journey, right? And many things are much better. Yeah, many of these things have been mentioned. There's still a few leftovers, and yeah, gives us a chance to also improve on that.
Yes, and Volkmar, it's been a journey. I think we've been on the journey with you for now 7 or 8 years. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We appreciate that.
Yes. All right. So with that in mind, we have about 15 minutes left. I'd like to address a few specific questions that I got during the registrations and have heard. So I'm going to address this one to hopefully Gerald. And we haven't heard from you yet, but we talk about OCM. Is it a different version of RAR that I have to install? Is it something new? How do I get OCM?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for putting that question to me. Maybe looking back how revenue accounting evolved, you might remember that it is an embedded part now of S4 since 1809. And we have now the optimized version since 1909. But this is not a separate installation process. It's just one revenue accounting, and you can choose then which flavor of revenue accounting you can choose. So either you decide to use optimized contract management or also the classical version. And as earlier mentioned, you could do this choice also based on specific scenarios. So both versions run also in separately. Yeah, and still there is more about that, as it was also pointed out. They have different capabilities. We support now day-based calculations in a much better way, and this leads also to different kind of technical structures. And so you need then to keep in mind there is basically a different flavor of revenue accounting. You can migrate classical contracts to optimized versions. So that's a migration path which is available. Still, you need to keep in mind that due to the functional enhancements, you might need to adopt something. We have a great migration note out there which explains each detail step. This is note 2881057. And then you get also a flavor what to do if you decide to migrate the classical contract to the optimized version. And just also a note to the optimized inbound processing. This also is available on the optimized contract management on your choice. So you could also use still the classical inbound processing with also the different steps which were mentioned earlier. So you could sort of park some items. You could then sort of reload those, or you could directly process that with the optimized inbound processing. And I mean, I also like to add that with optimized contract management, we have a very nice UI with the Fiori UI. I think this serves also something to mention, and it's for many customers also a motivation to go for the optimized contract management. On top that this is clearly our future direction, and due to this technical new base we have for optimized contract management, we also develop new features mainly on that new platform.
Right. That's interesting. So I'm going to jump around a little bit on these questions. The two things, and then let me follow up with that, Gerald and team. You talked about, I guess one question that comes to mind the way you said, can I do optimized contract management, but classic inbound processing, or do I have to do both together?
Right. So you have the choice. So you can do still classically inbound processing with the optimized one, and depending what you like to do, you could also have then the very direct way to do the posting and choose the optimized inbound processing.
Oh, great. Fantastic. And Pete, you hinted at this. So I'm going to throw this out for Pete, for you, plus anybody else. And I'm talking about the last question here. You know, in the past, we talked a lot about the whole parallel process between 605 and 606. A lot of companies did parallel or migrated from 605 to 606. Can I run parallel as I'm doing migration from classic contract management to OCM? Can I run in parallel? Are customers doing that?
Yeah, so I think we'll go back to Jin Volkmer and Gerald to kind of clarify, but as I understand it, the way you would do it, and Roshni, I think, has described this as lazy migration, is that
right,
you would start probably on classic, and then what you could do is you could start implementing OCM on all of the new contracts. And then every new contract that comes through is on OCM, and then all the old contracts stay on classic until they run out, right? So to me, that seems to be the best way, and that is, in my opinion, in this case, would be comparable to what you would call parallel migration, right? You could, at least from a contract perspective, right? Not accounting principle perspective, but optimized versus classic, yeah.
Yeah, and to bring maybe a different perspective into that. So you could also sort of decide a point in time when to migrate from classical contract management for specific scenarios to optimized ones. And then once you have done that migration, you basically forward any new events from the operational system to the optimized contract version.
Great. All right. Can OCM really handle high data volumes? We hear about data volumes, Pete, and I want to emphasize, because I think this is just amazing. When we say high data volumes, what are customers really doing with this?
Well, I mean, it's hard to sometimes get exact figures, but certainly we have some customers on S4 ERP add-on running S4 that are saying they're doing like, processing orders of 0.5 terabyte a month, right? Now, it's hard to extrapolate what that means, but that's literally tens and tens of millions of contracts, right, that they're running a month, and maybe even triple-digit millions, right, potentially. So these are the high volume or ultra high volume customers, and the OCM model or architecture is designed to run those volumes much more efficiently. Now, you always have to look at your data shape and your density and your hardware and landscape to get the exact performance numbers. But I can tell you, if I put an ERP add-on benchmark against an OCM benchmark, the OCM benchmark is probably going to do much better, right? That's what we've seen in kind of our internal tests. So that would be my feedback. I don't know if Gerald and Volkmarchin had feedback.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we do have a sizing guide for customers, because usually the data volume or performance is a very customer-specific topic. Customers may have huge data volumes, but the data structure or the data itself looks different from customer to customer. So we would recommend, actually, if you have questions, doubts, we are love to provide such sizing guide that can help customers to evaluate the impact on the data volume.
Yeah. Pete, you said something a minute ago about, real quick, you said something a minute ago that I know we talked about a lot as we worked with you on the solution brief and a few other things, volume and density. And I think that's an important point just to make for everybody what you mean by that.
Sure. So the volume would be the number of contracts. The density would be the number of line items or performance obligations on those contracts, right?
Right.
And sometimes we see both, right? We have some customers that have high volumes and high density in different parts of the business. Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. You were going to say something else?
I think the sizing guide has a note number, Chin. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I remember correctly, yes, we.
Yeah, if you could look it up, or we can provide it in the follow-up. Yeah. So.
Yep, or somebody can drop it into the chat if you want. That's possible too. You can do that. So
that sizing guide is very helpful. And again, it's these sizing. It is a guideline, right? And so you really have to do a little. And maybe Roshni, I think you've seen that, right? I think we have a Max team that does some of this sizing and does a little bit of testing on your hardware and your data shape and volumes and densities, right? So that you make sure you get accurate.
Exactly. Yeah, because it varies very significantly based on how you have your contracts set up and structured. So if you have shorter term contracts, and the number of POBs you have plays a huge factor in that. So we definitely recommend a sizing exercise.
Yeah, and Shashank, your experience, you're on that really large company, but we've also talked with several others who fit that. The sizing exercise. What's your perspective?
Yeah, so like as Pete mentioned, it majorly, as it is, you're going to use S4 HANA capabilities using OCM. So you're gonna get a huge advantage of handling the high data volumes in terms of volume and density. So that is, a common feature that I go with in terms of handling the data volumes.
And that was always in the focus when we developed optimized contract management. So those high volume, high density scenarios.
Exactly.
So if we are not better, we did not do a good job, but we are better.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna last question that I got, and then we're running to the top of the hour. Does OCM handle RISE? Somebody want to know, does it handle RISE differently? Do I have the same level of control over them? I think we answered that question, but I don't know if anybody wants to address that specifically.
I could cover that and reiterate on that what I already said. So you can run either the classical inbound processing with the same capabilities, also for optimized contract management. But you also can choose to use the optimized inbound processing. And here you have a different way of treatment. So as you directly process that, you don't have sort of a decision point to exempt some of those. But if any of those new RARs runs into an error, we have a new Fury application where you could look at that and then reprocess that once the error has been resolved.
Great. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks everybody. What I'd like to do is maybe give a couple of folks any, Pete, let me give you and Volkmar and the team, the opportunity to kind of give a last statement. I think, we've learned and we see that OCM is really the powerful tool driving this new digital economy and underlies companies' abilities to support the digital economy and subscription models. So did you want to kind of tie it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, we're really trying to design, for, the latest trends in the digital economy and what we see in the customer base. And of course, those trends are a little ahead of what we can get to market. But I think the OCM product is pretty close to what the market now is saying they need. And, by the time we get to this fall, we'll have the optimized or the real-time processing on the inbound and the outbound side. But again, always stick to best practices. This is a complicated space, so we always want you to do the fit gap, right? Requirements gathering, fit gap, and ideally, if you can do a pilot and then roll out. And those will naturally then allow you to pick the best solution. I think most customers will find that OCM is probably the best trade-off and giving them the best functionality and also longest runway on that platform and that investment, right? Because it is the latest product and is the future.
Yeah, and absolutely, it's the future, and in more ways than one. So with that, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all our panelists for joining, especially the folks in Germany. Thank you guys, as always, for staying up so late and supporting us. I think the audience got a lot of great information out of this, and I appreciate everything. Pete and Roshni, as always, thank you for your support, and Shashank, thanks for taking the time out of being on the customer meetings to do this. So thank you, everybody. Again, you can continue to access this. It'll be available in the next couple of days up on our website, so you'll have access to this. Reach out to us, reach out to Pete Graham directly for some questions that you might have around this. Look for more topics specific to the integration of automated revenue management, revenue accounting, together with the solutions and digital economy in upcoming webinars. I thank you all. Please stay safe, and we look forward to you on the next webinar. Make it a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Yep.